Alrighty, we're just about wrapped up with our nav drawers. So let's go ahead and implement the appropriate layouts that we need in order for our nav drawer to work. So the appropriate layouts and the appropriate IDs. So if we jump into our nav drawer implementation, we see we already have a roadmap of things we have to do. We have to create this layout, this list item nav drawer, and he has to have an icon, a text, and a badge. So let's go ahead and do that. What I'm going to do here is I'm going to put my keyboard cursor on this red text, and I'm going to hit Alt-Enter, and then Enter, which will bring up my new resource file with the list item navdrawer.xml pre-filled in the file name. The root element will be a linear layout, so that was lucky. Let's go ahead and hit Enter, and we now have our awesome linear layout. So let's go ahead and write out our properties for our root element. Our orientation is going to be horizontal, not vertical, because remember, this is what we're trying to get here. We're trying to get an icon here, a text here, and another text here. That's our goal. So we'll be horizontal. Our layout height is going to be 48 dp, which is what Google recommends for the height of navigation drawer items. Our layout width, of course, will be match parent because we want to fill the entire row. Then I'm going to do something interesting here. I'm going to say background, and I'm going to say $Android adder selectable item background. So the selectable item background is a really cool background drawable that's a state machine. I wonder if it'll show me the source if I control click. No, unfortunately it's not. But it's a state machine in that it'll change the background of the view when you click and hold on it. So that's the behavior I want. I want it to behave like that. I want it to be able to click down on it and see visual feedback. It'll also afford us the ripple effect when used in Android 5. So for example, right here, you see this? When I hold down, that is what that attribute does. When I hold down and click, I get that nice ripple effect. And I get a different background when I hold down and click just by referencing this drawable. So that's a really cool little trick to keep in mind right there. Then I'm going to give it a padding left of 16 dp and a padding right of 16 dp. Finally, I'm going to give it a gravity, not a layout gravity, a normal gravity, which remember, layout gravity applies to how this element's laid out in its parent. Normal gravity applies to how this object's children are laid out within it. We're going to say start and center vertical. So all our elements will be centered vertically. As you can see here, that's how we have it. Okay, so that's our linear layout. Let's start off with our image view. Our image view is going to have a width of 24 dp, and a height of 24 dp. I could alias that out into a dimensions file if I wanted to. It's going to have an ID. Now, what's the ID? We've already chosen the ID. The chosen ID is list item nav drawer icon. So that's what we're going to use. List item nav drawer icon. So then we have our ID, and then we want a, let's go ahead and implement a margin end of 16 dp to push the text over to the right. And then let's go ahead and, I'm going to give it a source. The reason I'm giving it a source, I'm going to give a source of drawable /IC. Let's do unread, sure, why not? The reason I'm doing this is for design time preview. I want to be able to preview this icon as I'm working in design time. However, the source is going to be replaced even before this view is ever shown by code. When this layout gets inflated, the source is going to be replaced with whatever we passed into the constructor. So I can use whatever value I want here to see it how it appears in design time, and then when it comes to runtime, it'll be replaced with the appropriate icon. So that's really cool. Next up, I want a text view. As text view is going to have a width of wrap content, or a width of 0 dp, and a height of wrap content. It's going to have a text size of 14 sp. It's going to have a text style of bold. A text color, let's do a DE000000. So a black, but a slightly transparent black. And then it's going to have a text. Let's do just type in inbox. Like I said with this guy, with this image view, we can type in whatever we want here. It doesn't matter because we're just using it to preview this in design time. Then I'm going to give it a layout weight of 1. So now we have our inbox, and you see it's properly floated in the center. The last thing I want to do is I need to give it an ID first. So I'm going to give it an ID, and we already chose the ID, remember? The ID is going to be list item nav drawer text. Finally, let's go ahead and do our badge. Our badge is going to have a width of wrap content, a height of wrap content, a text of, let's just do 30 to see how that looks. So you see the badge all the way to the right-hand side. We can give it a background of something. We can give it a background of like 444, and we can give it a text color of, I don't know, E. I like my grays. And then we can give it a padding of 5 dp. Finally, we can give it an ID of list item nav drawer badge. Now we have our badge. And you see it's all the way floating on the right-hand side. All right, so that's it for our nav drawer item. Coming back to our nav drawer class, you notice all those errors went away. So now what I have to do is let's go ahead and implement our background resource, and let's implement our text color. So I'm going to hit Alt-Enter on this red, and I'm going to say Create Drawable Resource File, and hit Enter, and then hit Enter. So what's this going to do is this is going to create a nice little drawable XML file. We'll talk about the syntax in here in a little while, and you'll see bits and pieces of how to work with drawable XML files as this series progresses. So for now, basically, we're just going to be putting in a solid color. So I'm going to replace this selector with shape. And then inside of shape, I'm simply going to do solid with an Android color of, let's do 120000000. So basically, we're giving the background a semi-transparent black. All right, let's go ahead and implement our selected item text color now. So I'm going to hit Alt-Enter, and I'm going to say Create Color Resource File, or I wonder, I've never actually done this before. Let's do Create Color Resource. And, okay. That was actually pretty easy, I think. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to hit Alt-Enter, I'm going to say Create Color Resource, and then I'm going to type in the color that I want it to be. So hit Alt-Enter. The color is going to be 2196 F3. Hit Enter. And presumably what that did, it did. So inside of my colors.xml file, which is under Resource Values Colors, notice how it just inserted a list item nav drawer selected item text color with the value that I specified. So that's a really cool little shortcut. I didn't use that before. That's neat. Okay, let's come back to nav drawer, and yeah, I mean those are our colors. The final thing we have to do really is implement our drawer layout. So what I'm going to do is, first of all, I'm going to create the nav drawer that we're going to be using. So the actual include file, remember how in the previous video, or the previous set of videos when we talked about nav drawers, we created that include file that contained the actual drawer part, the part that actually floated out? Well, that's exactly what we're going to do here as well. So to do that, I'm going to come up here to Resource Layout. I'm going to right-click Layout, select New Layout Resource File, and I'm going to say Include... what do I want to call this? How about main nav drawer? Okay, so again, this is the part that flies out. This needs to have places where I can insert items, insert nav drawer items. So yeah, let's, I guess, go ahead and get started. We'll start off with the linear layout with a vertical orientation. For the width, I'm going to go ahead and give it a width of 300 dp. And now it's important that I give it a ID. I need to give it an ID so my nav drawer can find it. So remember, that's where this comes from. So what I need to do is I need to give it an ID that matches that, which is simply Nav Drawer. By giving it an ID of Nav Drawer, I can come back to navdrawer.java and see that this code now compiles. Okay, so inside this linear layout, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to create a relative layout. And this relative layout is going to contain my avatar as well as my name. The relative layout will have a width of fill parent and a height of wrap content. For the background, I'm going to give it a deep blue, which is going to be 0D47A1, which is this nice deep blue. 0D47A1. And then I'm going to go ahead and inside of my relative layout, I'm going to create an image view. And the image view is going to be for my avatar. So I'm going to say image view and give it a width of 64 dp and a height of 64 dp. Of course, let's go ahead and fix that right there. And in addition, I'm going to go ahead and give it a margin top. Well, I guess I can go ahead and just give it a margin of 16 device-independent pixels. And then, of course, I'm going to want to give it an ID. So I'm going to give it an ID of include main nav drawer avatar. And so as you can see, there's our image. Let's go ahead and fill it up with something for testing purposes. I'm going to give it a source of @drawable, and I'm going to pass in something like IC group. Or how about IC navigation menu, because that's a white icon, so it'll show up a little better. Or no, that'll get confusing with the nav bar. Let's just go with unread. Just so we can see the icon right there. All right, let's go ahead and do the name. So we want to show our name as well, our display name of the app. The width of the text view will be wrap content. The height of the text view will be wrap content. It will be below the image view. So what I want to do here, or not below the image view, it'll be to the right of the image view. So to do that, I'm going to say to end of drawer avatar. So that'll place it to the right. And then I want to go ahead and say align top drawer avatar. So the top is aligned with it. Then I want to give it an ID, which will be ID/include main nav drawer display name. I'll give it a text of, how about Nelson Lackey? So we can see it represented there. And then I'll give it a text color of slightly transparent, so 8A white. FFF, FFF. F. Come on. FFF, FFF. There we go. Okay, so now that we've done that, let's go ahead and that's done. So it doesn't look like it's aligned, but it is. See, there's a little bit of internal padding in this image view that makes it not look aligned, but just know that it is. Because when I click on this image view, you can see the bounds right here represented by this blue square. All right, now let's go ahead and put in our main items, where our main items are going to appear. They're going to appear inside of a scroll view. The scroll view is going to have a width of fill content and a height of 0 dp. Then it's going to have a layout weight of 1. That means the scroll view is going to contain all of the remaining space inside this linear layout, which is what we want. Now the scroll view is going to have a, inside of it, it's going to have a linear layout itself. This linear layout is going to contain all the items that appear at the top. So it's going to contain all of these items at the top right here. So I'm going to give it a layout width of fill parent and a layout height of wrap content. Then I'm going to give it a, I'm going to go ahead and self-close it because we're not going to be putting anything directly inside of it. I'm going to give it a orientation of vertical, and I'm going to give it an ID of plus ID/include main nav drawer top items. And that's going to be where our top items go. Now all that's left is where our bottom items are going to go. So what I can do here is at the bottom here, I can say linear layout. I'm going to give it a width of fill parent, a height of wrap content. I'm going to make it self-closing. Then I'm going to give it an orientation of vertical and an ID of include main nav drawer bottom items, and I'm going to give it a background of E3F2FD, which is that kind of lightish blue color you see right there. And that's it. That's our include main nav drawer. So now let's go ahead and fix up our main activity. Our main activity's layout to include not only our drawer layout, but also import our nav drawer. So to do that, let's jump over into activity main.xml. And I'm going to change this relative layout to our drawer layout. So I'm going to say android.support.v4.widget.drawer layout. And I'm going to go ahead and paste that in there so that the begin tag and the end tag match. Then, this is important, I have to give it an ID that can be picked up by our navdrawer.java. In this case, it's drawer_layout. So I need to make sure that those IDs match. I'm going to say drawer layout. Now our navdrawer file compiles. It compiles because all of those layouts and IDs and things that we didn't previously have created are now all created. So now inside of activity main, what I'm going to do here is I'm going to open up a, it really doesn't matter what I use as my first element, because my first element is basically the contents of my layout. So I'm just going to put in a linear layout. Doesn't really matter. I'm going to do match parent with an orientation of vertical, and then I'll include my include toolbar. I can also, just to prove that this is all working, I'll throw in a text view just for fun, with a layout width of wrap content, a layout height of wrap content, and text of hello world. The final thing I need to do inside of activity main is include my nav drawer itself. See, right now we would get an error. We would get an error if we tried to run this because our nav drawer doesn't yet exist in our activity main. But once I do this include, by doing include layout equals include main nav drawer, now our code should work. Of course, I forgot one important thing, and I was just reminded by it by our preview panel. I forgot to specify the gravity of our include main nav drawer. So let's go ahead and do that real fast. I'm going to control click on this attribute, which will conveniently take us to that file. And I'm going to scroll up all the way to the top, and I'm going to change the linear layout. I'm going to change its layout gravity to start, which will make it appear on the left-hand side of the screen. So now, coming back into the activity main layout file, I can see that this include statement creates an object all the way to the left of the screen, which is what our activity layout is now, or our nav drawer layout is. All right, we are almost done. The last thing I need to do is inside of our views main nav drawer, I now need to give proper values to our container ID. I now need to tell it which view group do I want this nav drawer item to appear on. So if you recall, inside of our include main nav drawer, we have two view groups. We have one at the top called include main nav drawer top items, and one at the bottom called include main drawer bottom items. So coming back in here, the first one I'm going to do for the top, I'm going to say r.id.include main nav drawer top items. And then for our logout link, I'm going to say r.id.include main nav drawer bottom items. And that's it. So let's go ahead and hit play. And I'll go ahead and log in and hit login and check that out. We have our hamburger. If I scroll to the right, we have our layout. Now, unfortunately, I forgot to put a background on our nav drawer. I'll fix that here in a moment. If I hit logout, nothing happens because of another thing I totally forgot about. Anyway, that's not too bad for having not tested this in so long. We have two problems. The first problem is, of course, going to be the background of our nav drawer. That's easy to fix. I can just jump into include main nav drawer, and I can go ahead and give it whatever background I want up here at the top. In this case, I'm going to give it a background of all white. So FFF, FFF. I could just do FFF, by the way, if I wanted to. Next up, I now need to fix the fact that the click handlers aren't working. The reason the click handlers aren't working is because I totally forgot to tell the click handlers to register themselves. So let's fix that. Jumping into the Views package, I can open up Nav Drawer, and scrolling down all the way into our basic Nav Drawer item, when we inflate the view, what I want to do is right after we inflate the view, I want to say view.setOnClickListener this. Now, if you get an error here, that means you didn't implement the view on click listener on the basic Nav Drawer item. So let's go ahead and hit play and see what that did for us. Hopefully that resolved the two issues. So let's log in. Let's log in. Let's click the hamburger and check that out. Our background works. And we can click on items. So if I click on log out, it says you have logged out. Now it doesn't make the nav bar go away because we overrode that functionality. Also notice how inbox is highlighted. Inbox is highlighted because that's the activity we are already in. All right, so that's basically our awesome Nav Drawer item things. So to manipulate your Nav Drawer, you just invoke these add items, add your basic Nav Drawer items or your activity Nav Drawer items, and so on and so on. Pretty straightforward, and you can customize it to however you want. So again, this is just an example of how we can use object-oriented techniques to make less code and to make our code a little bit more modular and only have responsibilities be in singular places. Because usually, where would you see code like this? You would see it strewn about your base activity class, and it would be really ugly. In this particular scenario, we now have all that functionality encapsulated into one class right here, our main Nav Drawer. All right, that just about wraps everything up, and we'll see you guys in the next